Imagine you are sailing across the deep blue waters of the South Pacific, where the charts say the ocean is 2 miles deep. Right beneath your ship sits a massive piece of land the size of India that has been hiding in total darkness for millions of years. We have spent decades mapping the distant surface of Mars and the craters on the moon, but we completely missed an entire continent on our own planet. For centuries, explorers searched for a legendary southern landmass, believing it was a myth like the lost city of Atlantis. In 2017, a team of brave geologists proved the myth was actually a physical reality made of solid rock and ancient history. They discovered a giant tract of land called Zealandia, which is almost entirely submerged under the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. This discovery changed everything we thought we knew about the map of our world and how the Earth actually works. To understand how a whole continent can just vanish, we have to look at the very foundation of the ground we walk on. The crust of our planet comes in two very different flavors that act like oil and water in a giant stone soup. Oceanic crust is made of dark and heavy basalt, which is thin and likes to sit very low in the Earth's mantle. Continental crust is made of light and fluffy granite, which is thick and buoyant enough to float high above the heavy ocean floor. If you find a massive slab of granite sitting in the middle of the deep sea, it simply should not be there. It is like finding a giant wooden raft at the bottom of a swimming pool instead of floating on the surface. This is exactly what scientists found when they started looking closely at the seafloor surrounding the islands of New Zealand. They realized that the islands were not just isolated volcanic peaks popping out of the water, like most people believed. New Zealand and New Caledonia are actually the highest mountain peaks of a vast drowned landmass that is 94% underwater. If you could pull a giant plug and drain the Pacific Ocean, you would see a spectacular plateau rising high above the plains. This hidden world covers nearly 5 million square kilometers, which makes it much larger than the biggest countries in Europe. For millions of years, this land was part of a supercontinent called Gondwana, which held together almost all the land we know today. About 200 million years ago, the map of the world looked nothing like the colorful globes we see in our classrooms. South America and Africa and Antarctica and Australia were all smashed together into one giant puzzle piece of land. Zealandia was tucked right against the edge of Australia, and Antarctica enjoying a warm climate and lush green forests. As the hot interior of the Earth began to churn and pull these pieces apart, the supercontinent started to crack and groan. Most continents split apart like a clean break in a piece of dry wood, leaving behind clear edges and deep basins. But Zealandia was different because it did not just snap away from its neighbors as the plates moved. Instead of breaking, the crust began to stretch and thin out like a piece of warm chewing gum being pulled apart. As the land got thinner, it lost its ability to float high on the mantle, and it started to sink lower and lower. Eventually, the crust became so thin and heavy that the ocean water rushed in to cover the rolling hills and valleys forever. By the time the dinosaurs were dying out, most of Zealandia had already disappeared beneath the restless waves of the ocean. Today, only 6% of this vast territory remains above the water, including the snowy mountains of the Southern Alps. Scientists wanted to prove this was really a continent, and not just a weirdly shaped piece of the regular ocean floor. They sent down specialized drills to bite into the seabed and pull up samples from thousands of feet below the surface. What they found was stunning evidence of a world that once breathed the same air as we do today. The drill bits brought up ancient pollen from trees that only grow on land and fossils of land-dwelling creatures. They even found evidence of terrestrial dinosaurs that once stomped through the forests of a land that is now an abyss. This proved that Zealandia was once high and dry and full of life before the Great Sinking began millions of years ago. But Zealandia is not the only ghost continent that is haunting the deep corners of our vast global oceans. If we travel thousands of miles away to the Indian Ocean, we find another mystery hidden near the island of Mauritius. Mauritius is a young volcanic island that formed only a few million years ago from hot lava cooling in the sea. In 2013, geologists were walking along the tropical beaches and found something that should have been physically impossible. They discovered tiny crystals called zircons hiding inside the volcanic rocks that make up the island's foundation. Zircons are incredibly tough minerals that act like tiny time capsules because they can survive for billions of years without changing. When the scientists tested these tiny crystals, they found that some of them were nearly 2 billion years old. This created a massive scientific headache because the island of Mauritius itself is less than 10 million years old. You cannot have a 2 billion-year-old crystal inside a rock that was born yesterday unless that crystal came from somewhere else. The only place these ancient zircons could have come from is a piece of very old continental crust buried deep underground. This led to the theory of a lost microcontinent named Mauritia, which once sat between the coast of Madagascar and India. As those two giant landmasses drifted apart, they left behind a trail of continental crumbs that sank into the depths. Mauritia was likely a long and narrow strip of land that got stretched and broken until it could no longer stay afloat. Today, it is buried under layers of young volcanic lava, making it one of the hardest places on Earth to actually map. These discoveries show us that the ocean floor is not just a flat and boring desert of mud and cold salt water. It is a graveyard of lost worlds and forgotten geography that holds the secrets to how our planet was built. Scientists now estimate that there could be over 200 of these microcontinents scattered across the globe. In the Atlantic Ocean, there is a strange feature called the Rio Grande Rise, which sits off the coast of Brazil. It is a massive block of rock that is 7,000 meters thick, and it has puzzled sailors and scientists for a long time. In 2021, a research paper revealed that this area contains metamorphic rocks that only form on dry land. This suggests that a giant land bridge might have once connected South America and Africa long after they started moving apart. Imagine a world where animals could walk across the Atlantic on a strip of green land while the ocean crashed on either side. Every time we find one of these submerged lands, we fill in a missing page of the Earth's long and complicated diary. It makes us realize that the familiar shapes of the continents we see on our maps are not permanent features. The ground we stand on feels solid and eternal, but it is actually moving and changing on a scale we can barely imagine. We are living during a very brief moment in geological time where these specific pieces of land happen to be above water. If we could fast forward another 100 million years, the map of the Earth would look like a completely different planet. New continents will rise from the sea, and the ones we live on now might become the next hidden mysteries for future explorers. The discovery of Zealandia and Mauritia reminds us that we are still in the age of discovery, even in the modern world. We do not need to go to other planets to find alien landscapes because they are waiting for us right here under the waves. The ocean covers 70% of our world, and we have only explored a tiny fraction of what lies on its floor. Every sonar ping and every deep-sea drill brings us closer to understanding the true face of our home planet. These lost continents are like hidden libraries that preserve the history of life and the movement of the Earth's plates. They tell us stories of ancient climates and mass migrations and the violent forces that shape the world we see. The fact that a landmass the size of Zealandia could stay hidden for so long is a humbling reminder of our own ignorance. It challenges the idea that we have conquered nature or that we know everything there is to know about our surroundings. When you look at a map from now on, try to imagine the ghost outlines of the lands that are no longer there. Think about the mountains and valleys that are currently home to deep-sea fish, but were once home to dinosaurs and birds. The Earth is a dynamic and restless place that is constantly recycling its surface and hiding its past in the deep. We are just temporary guests on these floating rafts of granite as they drift across a sea of heavy basalt and magma. The story of the lost continents is not just about rocks and minerals, but about the incredible scale of time itself. It shows us that even the most massive things can disappear, and even the most hidden things can eventually be found. As technology improves, we will likely find even more of these drowned lands hiding in the dark corners of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. We are just beginning to scratch the surface of the secrets that the deep sea has been keeping for millions of years. The next time you see the ocean, remember that it is not just a body of water, but a vast veil covering a hidden world. A world of sunken peaks and ancient forests and the heavy silence of a continent that hasn't seen the sun in an eternity. Our journey to map these places is one of the greatest adventures in human history, and it is happening right now. We are finally opening our eyes to the full picture of the Earth, and the view is absolutely breathtaking and full of wonder. The ground beneath your feet might feel still, but it is part of a grand dance that has been going on for billions of years. If you want to see more of the hidden mysteries that are changing everything we know about our planet, click the video on your screen right now.